Hello, everybody at Volhard Dog Nutrition. This is Jennifer Carter, Vice President of Operations. We are here today with an extraordinary guest speaker, Robin McFarlane. And some of you may know her, some of you may not, but after today, you will definitely know her better than you did when we started. Robin is going to be a brand ambassador for Volhard Dog Nutrition, and she has been an affiliate and a reseller for Volhard Dog Nutrition for a very long time. So this is no small, interesting thing for her to do. This is just the next leg up in her relationship with Volhard Dog Nutrition. Robin McFarlane is not only a dog trainer, but she is more interesting than that. She is a trainer of dog trainers. Yes, so she helps all of those people out there who are trying to learn how to be the best trainer they can be. She will step in and help them find their way, use new techniques, and adopt some great best practices. One of those best practices is understanding how to take in a dog, assess their health, assess their ability to be trained, and to take a look at their diet and help them be the best version of themselves so that when the trainer actually sets time with this dog, that it is productive. Her career has spanned over 30 years. Okay, she started as a vet tech. We'll all forgive her for that. Just laughing. She started as a vet tech, and then she launched this fantastic training company in 1998, where she served as CEO and training director of a company called That's My Dog, which she just sold in 2021. So Robin brings to this conversation a very unique perspective. She's going to speak from being able to observe dog behavior, having applied a change of diet in the past, and what experience she's got out of that. So, Robin, what did I miss about your resume that you would like the Volhard Pack members to know about you, short of the obvious that I just shared with them?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if you missed anything, but just to maybe pull that together a little from the perspective of how I look at training and how I look at dogs. I'm really thankful that I started out as a vet tech, and it gave me that perspective of what it was like behind the scenes there, what kind of frantic pace they often have to deal with, what time constraints they're under, and why it is that sometimes we may feel in our community, we may feel like, why am I not getting some of these information pieces that I'm having to go and find at other resources? I have a tremendous amount of empathy for the veterinary community and what they're trying to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I think the fact that I had that past experience and then transferred into training, and then of course met the founder of Volhard Dog Nutrition with Wendy and started mentoring with her, it just really, I can see it from so many angles, so I think there's that. And then I do have, my background is a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. And I think that lends itself well, not only to the nutrition component, but it also lends itself, because zoology emphasis was my deal. The animals was where I wanted to be. I really wanted to do field research initially. So honing my observational skills is something I was taught to do very early on. So I think those pieces of puzzle have really helped me to kind of come to this place that I'm at 30 plus years later. Thanks for reminding me of that, Jen. I appreciate it.
Well, we're assuming you started at like 8, so
okay.
We're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you were a protege, right from the beginning.
Right.
Do you have any dogs personally that you currently have in your house?
I do. I have currently 2 dogs. I have a Nova Scotia duck tooling retriever, and Diva is 12. She just turned 12 a couple months ago, and she was actually my first dog. She's been on it the longest. She's been on the Vulhard system the longest. I started her when she was just shy of 2 years old. So she's had 10 years now. Wow. And it's been lovely to watch how she has aged differently than my previous dogs. And wow, I mean, what a testament. People look at her and they think there's no way this dog is 12. It's just really incredible. So I have her, lovely dog, lovely retriever temperament. And then I have my naughty, naughty, naughty little retriever, or I'm sorry, terrier mix. No, my retriever is lovely. My terrier mix is all terrier. He's a shelter dog. I got him a few years ago. He was probably a year old when I adopted him. So he's probably close to 5 right now. Again, I started him on Volhard right away. He has just thrived. Body condition from when I got him to what he transferred into is incredible. Muscle tone, coat, and all of that. But he's also just like a Mexican jumping bean on high octane caffeine all the time.
Well, we can always count on those terriers for a spirited jaunt, right? 24/7.
That's a really
I never
lovely
realized, yeah, I never realized how obsessive compulsive my Yorkshire Terrier was until I got a hound mix. And then it became very obvious to the entire family the behavioral pattern differences between those dogs. And what we were getting from the terrier was on all the time, really keeping us all on track, making sure that we were all, stepping in line the way we should be, feeding on time, playing on time. These were very important structured things for the terrier that the hound mix does not exhibit in the same way. So it really is quite interesting when you have different personalities, that yin yang in the house. Yeah. Sometimes the hound is like to the terrier, you are at a 10. I need you at a 3. Like, what is happening with you? Outstanding. So let's, delve in a little bit to talk about your method or philosophy by which you train dogs. What would you say differentiates your approach to training as compared to others? I know that everybody out there has seen all of these television network shows with celebrity dog trainers, all different kinds of breeds, all different kinds of goals for those dogs. Some of them are working dogs, some of them are, without saying names, helping folks with problem dogs in their house. These are normal pet parents, right? They didn't sign on for a working dog, and it may be what they've gotten in some cases, and are unable to handle them. So what differentiates your approach?
Oh boy. Well, I think if somebody's just going to go to Google and they're going to look up Rob McFarlane, what the leading thing that they're going to come across is that I've done an incredible amount of work in the e-collar world. And so that is very well known that I teach people how to use e-collars. And I'm really proud of that work because it's a tool that's available and people need to understand how to use it. What I want them to understand, though, is when they dig deeper, that's just one of the tools in the toolbox. And that is just part of the way that I approach dogs. One of the things that I think differentiates me from some trainers is my thought process that we need to first honor the dog. We need to honor the dog. And what I mean by that is I don't mind if people want to dress up the dog or put the dog in a purse and carry it around. I don't mind any of those things. I don't mind if your dog has 3,000 dog toys in the house. But what I do mind and what I need you to understand is, first and foremost, we need to meet the dog's needs. And a dog needs movement. A dog needs to be able to be on the ground. You need to experience the earth with the dog. They need obviously the components of diet and healthcare and those components, but they need to be allowed to be a dog. And that's what brought me to the e-collar work so strongly is, can we allow our dogs opportunity, free range of motion? The amount of stress I think so many dogs are under nowadays simply because their life is restricted to the length of their leash. And I find that sad. I think that is just not fulfilling for a creature that was designed for movement and a lot of movement within a given day, and obviously we can go down the rabbit holes of how that's impacted. There's so much obesity in dogs. There's so much disease, a number of these things. So my approach is to really dig in and look at the whole dog. What are the health components? What are the behavioral components? Are the behavioral components rooted in the lack of enrichment and the lack of opportunity for our dog to behave according to their genetics and according to what they were designed to be? So I think helping people understand that is something that I do well. I really attempt to help people see the dog before we go down the path of putting spotlights on the problems per se. We need to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, that has been Wendy's mantra, ever since I've known her, which is to look at that dog holistically and, really be an observer and see if you can't see what the dog is trying to tell you, whether that's through behavior or whether that's through some kind of communication that may obviously not be super obvious to a new pet owner, right? Especially if they're adopting a dog, because that's a completely different thing. If you're not getting a puppy and raising it from its beginnings the way you would like, and you're taking in a dog with some baggage, right? We don't exactly know what that baggage is, but you're taking in that dog. There's a lot more observation that needs to happen and patience than I think even with a puppy. Would you agree?
Oh my gosh, patience is a key word, Jen. Sometimes watching me train a dog or many of the people that I have high regard for, it's like watching paint dry. It is not
Right.
glamorous. It is not, boom, 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 look at everything happening. It is not glamorous. It is, and a lot of it is sitting in observation, especially when you get a dog out of a situation that was maybe less than ideal to begin with, because the reality is that dog is under stress initially. They're a little shell shocked, for lack of a better word. It's going to take them a while to get a lay of the land in your new household to start to display what is in their normal behavioral profile. So being able to sit back and hang and watch and observe and then figure out, after a period of time, how you're going to maneuver things so that it's going to work well in your lifestyle. It's not glamorous. And that's probably why I'm not a TV star, because it's not flashy.
Right. And each dog is their own little person. So there's no general analysis. You go in with a general idea, but that dog could end up taking you down a rabbit hole you didn't think you were going to be on.
Yeah.
So how important is it for the dog owner to understand what you're doing and for them to be involved? How important is that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, the short answer is it's absolutely critical. It's absolutely critical that they are involved. There is no way any dog trainer can fix the problems with your dog and then turn this over as if it is, a piece of equipment that we've tinkered with and then we fixed it and it's going to run properly going forward. It doesn't work that way. Now, that said, I personally coach people to do the training themselves, but I also do board and train, which means I will take a dog for a period of time. The reason for that is not because I'm going to fix something and turn over an end product that's going to run properly. The reason for that is it's kind of like going off to, like a spa where you're going to kind of get a foundation reboot, so to speak. So board and train can be a reboot behaviorally. Over a period of weeks, I can get a dog into a new system, a new way of behaving, a new way of communicating with them. But then the emphasis has to switch. When the owner comes back into the picture, the emphasis has to switch, and I put all of it on them learning how to do the work, which is where the follow-up time that I have to work with the clients is a critical thing. I can't just take a dog and spend 3 weeks working with a dog and then in 90 minutes turn it back to the owner and go, well, see ya, that's going to be good. Absolutely is not going to work out. There has to be a period of follow-up.
Yeah, that makes sense because you're establishing a relationship with the dog over that period of time. The dog is learning to follow you as a leader. That still doesn't translate into every human as a leader. It translates into you have a relationship with that dog now, and that dog respects you, but doesn't necessarily respect anybody else yet, right? Until you
Exactly.
show the dog how to translate that.
That's exactly it. It really, the dog is, in reality, Jen, I think the dog is 25% of the training. I can change some things with the dog. Dogs fall into line when you change the human. So really, a
Right.
big majority of the work is about changing the human. And once I can do that, then the two species can coexist in a lot more beneficial and mutually cohesive way.
Yeah, I find that to be true. I work with my dog in the ring, and I work with a trainer in classes in order for me to become a better handler. And whenever the instructor of the class, the actual dog trainer, takes my dog and asks things of my dog would spin plates on her head for this trainer. And it's amazing. And what I figured out is that I, as an inexperienced handler, have a lot of noise in my training. I'm not clear in what I'm expecting of the dog, but an experienced trainer, when they talk to my dog, they're very clear. The conversation is very clean. The body language is very simple, where I keep putting things in there that are not necessary. It's confusing for the dog.
Mhm.
So I really spend a lot of time personally trying to become a better handler, so that this way my conversations with my dog are equally as clean,
Mhm.
and so the dog can understand what's expected without all the rest of the noise I put in there.
Yeah.
So what separates, now you're a trainer of trainers, right? That's what we started off by saying. So in your opinion, what separates a good handler from a great handler? In, let's just say for now, talking about the average pet parent, not the show handler. Let's keep that for a different discussion.
Oh, the separation between good and great. That's probably a finer line between the separation of poor and good. So just let me point that out. Because the typical person that comes that's having problems is a poor handler, because they are anthropomorphizing the dog. So they're assigning human attributes and human thought processes to the dog. And so therefore they're communicating as if they were communicating with another person, right? There are lots and lots of words and lots of vocal inflection to, try to get their message across. And the dog has no ability really to interpret all of that, because like you said, how do we clean that up? Less is more. Oftentimes less is more. So a good handler becomes competent in minimizing that conversation, or at least if they are speaking in a sentence to the dog, they're very capable of identifying the one particular word that they want the dog to cue on. That separates them. Their body language suggests calmness, and I realize that doesn't come naturally to everybody. I have to sometimes teach people, you know what, fake it till you make it. You might be really worked up because your dog is acting, crazy on the end of the leash, barking at the other dog. But if you act crazy, oh no, I need him to stop. Oh my goodness. That goes right down the leash. And I think a dog goes, cool, I got a cheerleader, and we're both yelling at the other dog. And so I have to teach people less is more. It has to be, that's enough. Let's go. And so getting them to silence some of that body language, some of that vocalization, that's a key piece. The person that becomes great is the person that can read the dog's body language, very subtle cues, and can anticipate what is about to happen 2 to 3 seconds from now. They are proactive. They become a great handler. They see a situation before the dog is actually doing it, and they know how to circumvent and guide the dog toward the proper behavior. Those are the great handlers.
Yeah, I could see it being difficult for a new person to really have the observational skills in the moment to get in front of the moment when the dog is thinking the activity instead of actually doing it, and then sort of catching them and going backwards, right? So if you could get in front of it while the dog is just thinking about it and stop them from thinking about it, then everything else doesn't happen. right? It just doesn't turn out in that mess or chaos that might ensue in that moment, a reaction or whatever that might look like. But I could understand how that would be difficult for a new pet parent. But somebody who invests the time to really understand their dog, I could see that they could make some real gains in a very short period of time if they're able to learn what to see. And that's the kind of thing that you help other trainers portray to their people. How do you help your clients get in front of things? How do you manage chaos within the training session? Those kinds of things.
Those are things that I do address with trainers. So I think it's very easy when you're a dog trainer, especially so many dog trainers, we work solo. So you're kind of out there on your own and you're doing the best that you can. And so getting outside of your own comfort zone and being able to see things from a different perspective, that's what I can provide with a lot of the trainers. So they can come to my workshops or camps, or sometimes I actually go to their facilities and coach them that way. But we do a number of things. We do a lot of role playing. Sometimes we do that. We sometimes have some of the difficult dogs come in, and that way I can pick apart some of those nuances that they may have missed. Oftentimes we have some of their clients come in and I will do the teaching for a session. So the trainer is able to observe, they can see it in real time. And then of course, after the client leaves or after we put the dog away, then if we can record it or we can pick apart some of those nuances. And then the most important part is I need it to be learned at a muscle memory level. So not only do I have to tell my trainers, not only do I have to show my trainers, I have to get them to do. And that's really a key teaching philosophy that I hold true, whether I'm working with a dog trainer or whether I'm working with a pet owner. I will tell you, I will show you, and then I will coach you through and get you to do it. Because if it doesn't become part of your core and part of a muscle memory, it's not going to be retained and you won't be able to carry it forward.
That makes perfect sense. And wow, what a great approach to getting people to be able to be successful. I mean, that is really fantastic. So we're going to switch gears here for a second, and we're going to transition over to talking about food. We started off talking about food, and you had mentioned earlier how important diet was when you're looking at the dog holistically and trying to figure out what are some of these trainability issues, right? When you're working with a parent, when you're working with this dog, one of those things might be, is the dog feeling well? Is the dog trainable because they're physically capable of doing it? They're not injured, they're not hurting in some way. Or as we talk about at Volhard, equating this to something people can really relate to is, if you were to go to work hungry or not having eaten the right thing, you can't focus because you're thinking about how you feel. You're thinking about your hunger. You're thinking about, what am I going to have for lunch because I didn't have a good breakfast, right? And that whole time you're going through the motions of whatever you're doing as a human being, but you're not really giving your 1,000% because you can't, because you don't have the nutritional elements in your body to support good brain function, to support good physical energy, all of those things. So let's go back on that for a second, since we hinted toward it in the beginning. How important is it to have your dog on a good diet when training, boarding, competing?
It is, I can't come up with the right adjective, Jen. I mean, it's critical. And this is something that I didn't realize early on. Like I said, I came from the very traditional medicine, Western medicine world. So I didn't really realize it until I started seeing enough dog after dog after dog. So I can recognize that the average pet owner doesn't necessarily see it in their dog because they see their dog every day. They don't recognize it. But when you start seeing lots and lots of dogs, and as a dog trainer, you don't just see them for 15 minutes in an office the way we did in the vet industry. You see them for hours and days and weeks, and you are able to take these observational skills and compare, well, this dog compared to that dog, what are some of the differences? Are the differences strictly behavioral, mental focus? And then your eye gets sharpened over time and you start to go, well, something looks amiss here. This dog is far more lethargic. And why is that? He's only 3 years old. This dog has a really dull coat. Why is that? So the dots started to be connected over time as my career came together. At this point, it's critical to me to do just kind of an overall check when I first meet the dog. If I have a dog, for instance, that it has some sort of, let's say, human aggression issue, that he's nipped at people, he's had some problems with people, I'm really going to focus on the neck up. Does this dog have dental problems? Does this dog have ear problems? Is there misalignment with the neck? And I can't necessarily diagnose these things. Oftentimes we have to work in conjunction with a veterinarian, but I can certainly pick apart, well, this dog has some really nasty looking teeth. That probably hurts. This dog has an ear infection. No wonder every time you go to scratch his head, he's kind of turning and snipping at you. So these things become very obvious with experience, and you realize as a trainer, there's no way I can get into this dog's head and get him to work with me and build a relationship when he just doesn't feel good, and you made the analogy, well, maybe, we may feel that way if we didn't eat well. Exactly. If you eat the wrong thing, if you ever had certain foods that, this is going to sound gross, but if there's certain foods don't sit right and you're gassy, you're not going to feel well. How many people have dogs that are like, oh, he's so gassy. He's so gassy. Think how your dog potentially feels if that's the case.
Right. And how uncomfortable that is. Right. And they don't even have, like, the human component is the embarrassment component. Dogs don't even have the embarrassment component. They don't care what they do in that moment. But if you have gas bubbles in your intestinal tract and it's causing you abdominal pain, you're focused on that. And for a dog, they feel vulnerable because they don't feel good. So vulnerability creates that defense, right? Where a dog comes too close to me, well, I feel vulnerable. I need you to stay away from me. And if they feel like they can't get away, then they're going to choose the other. Instead of flight, they're going to choose fight. And you're going to have a dog that appears to be aggressive, but they're just being protective of themselves.
100%. I mean, these things are just, they're foundational pieces that we must, in the trainer community, be considering on the front end of our training program. We have to consider these things on the front end. And obviously, the one thing that is the easiest really for the pet owner to control is, what am I feeding him? We can start with that foundation. Absolutely. What am I feeding him?
Absolutely. And it's about success, right? The client is investing money. They have gotten this dog. They want to be able to coexist with this dog appropriately. They may have children. They may have other dogs. There's other things on the line. So if we're looking at success being the goal, we want successful training. Does the quality of diet play a role in that?
Oh my gosh, it absolutely plays a role. And I think that, I do think there's a lot more awareness than when I started my career 25 plus years ago. There's more awareness now in the differences of quality of diet, but we still have a long way to go, which is why obviously I was excited about taking on this role. There's just a difference. And for me, I try to think of things in relatively simple terms because it's just, I think, more memorable for my clients. But for someone to tell me that my dog can eat this supposed nutritionally complete dry biscuit kibble for the rest of their life, day in, day out, and this is the best way to go. Imagine if we said that to ourselves. Imagine if we raised our children that way. If we said, you know what, I believe there's a cereal on the market. I don't know, it's some sort of brand cereal, but I believe they market 100% complete and nutritionally balanced, 100% of your, total daily needs for fiber and for these vitamins and these minerals. And that it might be a really wonderful cereal. But right. Do you honestly believe you can eat that day in, day out, no variability, and your health is going to be optimal? Maybe you'll survive. I don't know that you're going to thrive. That's my feeling. And we do this to our dogs without really blinking an eye and thinking about it. That has to change. We have to think differently.
Thank you, Robin. That was a really thoughtful comment. So, in keeping in that same thought process, what were your first impressions of Volhard Dog Nutrition's products when you first started feeding your dogs Volhard. So we're going to step back in time for a second, think back, and what prompted you to even start Volhard?
Oh my gosh, step back in time. So I remember hearing the founder, I remember hearing Wendy speak, and all I remember initially was, oh my gosh, this woman knows so much stuff. And it resonated with me because, yeah, I mean, so much stuff. It resonated with me because I have the biology background. So while there were certainly a lot of things I hadn't heard specific to dogs, there were a lot of things that I did understand because of my biology degree. I also have to say that one of my first impressions was almost shame for myself, thinking, why didn't this dawn on me sooner? Why didn't I have those light bulbs going on? Why did I swallow the conventional thought process for so long, given my background? So there was actually, Jen, I have to say, some shame, in the initial stage, like an initial reaction. But the more I listen, the more I learn. I mean, it just was a no-brainer to start using the Volhard products for myself. That's where it started, because I didn't feel educated enough to go create my own diet. I didn't feel that I could, create my own appropriate, biologically appropriate diet for my dog. That felt too daunting. It felt too time consuming. So the fact that somebody that I respected as not only creating dog food, but somebody I respected in the dog community, somebody that knew dogs, loved dogs, trained dogs, had the same passions about dogs that I did, was creating something that made it easy for me to do better by my dog. It was like, I'm in, this is easy. So that was my initial, impressions and initially onboarding to start feeding Volhard to my own dogs. Once I did, what was so interesting within, I don't know, back then I didn't monitor, probably I didn't make as many notes and stuff, but I would say within 4 to 6 weeks, seeing my dogs physically change. For instance, my duck toller, it's a red dog, seeing the red deepen, seeing the color saturation begin to deepen rather than she was starting to fade a little bit, seeing the eyes start to change, and I don't know, a different clarity, a different sparkle. And she was a younger dog at the time. Seeing her body conformation change, just literally, and I've always exercised my dogs considerably, but just seeing some slight changes in the muscle conformation, things like that. That was, these were things that I started to notice within a number of weeks of putting them on the system. And then over time, the reduction, previous to being on Volhard, I had my first Malinois, Hero, who's been gone for some time now, was one of those with chronic ear infections. Ear infection after ear infection after ear infection. Well, now, again, there's that little bit of shame in the back of my mind saying, had you known this way back then, that poor dog wouldn't have suffered so much. We wouldn't have been at the vet doing cycles of antibiotics. And, he was to the point where he was shaking and scratching so much. He had a hematoma. We had to do the hematoma search. And I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, all of that, I fully believe 100% preventable just by changing his diet. Had I known then what I know now. So
it is really incredible. I felt similarly when I first met Wendy, and I met her, I was already in a crisis mode with my Chihuahua, who had been diagnosed basically with kidney failure and was given a death sentence by my regular veterinarian. And I thought to myself, this just can't be. There has to be a better way. I tried feeding my dog the prescription diet that they wanted me to feed him, and I was willing to do anything. I wanted him to get what he needed, whatever that meant, but he wouldn't eat it. And that's how I met Wendy, because I'm not going to let my dog starve to death. And I didn't feel like I could create a diet for him without breaking other things, right? I might be able to fix the kidney issue, but how do I make sure, since I'm not a nutritionist at that time in my life, how do I make sure I'm not breaking things as I'm trying to fix the one thing, by not having balanced, nutrients in the diet? So I met Wendy under the same circumstances, and she basically told me to get my dog off of commercial kibble and to start cooking for him. and she gave me her book and said, this is the diet I want you to do for him, and these are the vegetables that I want you to use. And I'm going to tell you, I got another 4 years out of him
Oh,
when I was told that that was not an option. So for anybody that's out there that is struggling, just know that it's worth a shot, to take a look at diet and to try something, even if you think you would never try this under normal circumstances. If you're open-minded enough, it could just be the thing that changes the game for you and your dog. Now, that's going to a very extreme circumstance with a sick dog. We're staying in the swim lane of, hey, we have this dog and we want to be able to train this dog, and we want to be able to live with this dog appropriately. And we're talking about taking a look at that diet to make sure that the pet parent is successful, the trainer is successful. That's why you look at these things, because here you are as a trainer trying to take on this dog. And if the dog is distracted by health concerns, well, you're just not going to be as successful as you want to be. I'm so glad to hear about those impressions of Volhard, because I had very similar ones, Robin. That's awesome. And I have also been feeding Volhard for a very long time, even before I started working for the company.
hmm.
So to make things fun, what diet or supplement is your favorite go-to in Volhard?
Well, I guess I have two favorites. So my favorite is NDF2 because of the simplicity, right? One formula, feed it morning and night, easy peasy. I like things to be as simple and easy as I can. So that's my favorite. However, my dog, now that she's older, is going to AM and PM, so it's different things. So my second favorite is, thank goodness you guys make veggie packs, because I don't have to steam vegetables all
Yay.
the time. I love veggie packs because I just love them. I tried so hard to be religious about my veggies, steaming them and have them ready, and then I'd be out. And I'm
Right.
like, ah. So veggie packs are my
That's
go-to.
right.
I love them. I love them. Yeah. And of course,
Yeah, I use them also.
yeah, and I gotta be honest. I gotta be honest too. The endurance is probably one of my fast and easy recommendations, because when people are on the fence and they're like, I don't know if I can do it, I don't know how I feel about it, I'm blah blah blah. I'm like, well, at least start with adding a supplement to your kibble. And endurance has been a real game changer for a lot of people. It really has. So
Yeah, and little known to most people is that the veggie pack actually gets to the same place as the endurance, but it does it using different ingredients. So if you have a dog, endurance, for those of you who don't know, has wheat germ in it and wheat bran. So if you have a dog that has issues with grain, for whatever the matter, even if it's a short-term intolerance, you can utilize the veggie pack instead. And what that does is it takes the grain out of the conversation, puts in its place vegetables, 7 highly digestible vegetables, and you get to the same point if you're adding it to kibble or to a raw diet or homemade cooked diet, but without the grain, if that's a trigger for your dog. So it's it's nice to have alternatives. I love the veggie pack. I really do. I use the plain version when I'm using it with a diet. I use the liver version when I'm trying to supplement some extra liver for vitamin D or something like that. It's really quite lovely. So I agree with you. I use the rescue with my Yorkshire Terrier, and I'm so thankful that Wendy came up with that diet, because for a dog that doesn't like vegetables, I will tell you, she loves the rescue for whatever the reason. And as a terrier, this is her charm. She has immune system overload all the time, mostly when things are blooming or when things are molding. So this time of year, I use the rescue as a functional food to try to keep her response at bay. It doesn't always eliminate it, but it does keep it from getting out of hand. And I'm happy to say that I was told my Yorkshire Terrier would be on steroids and antibiotics for the rest of her life, and she has been medicine free for about 7 years.
wow. That's
Yeah. So
impressive.
using food can really be an advantage if you know what you're doing or if you have some helpful guidance, right? In that endeavor. So yay. So, okay. Favorite Volhard. I love, how can you choose? It's just so hard. All right, let's talk about issues. This is going to wind up our talk today. We're going to close out our talk with a conversation about some issues. So, everybody likes some good gossip. So let's talk about the gossip and your dogs. So with your clients, what are some of the most common mistakes that dog owners make as they reflect either way that they feel about themselves or that might impact the relationship that they have with their dog, right?
Hmm.
So some of those mistakes between, the way they feel about themselves or the relationship they're beginning or continuing it with their animal.
Ooh, we're going to go down some interesting rabbit holes here, Jen.
I figured this is the gossip part.
Yeah, this is the gossip part. This is the juicy stuff. And I see this stuff all the time. And anybody that's listening that resonates with this, know that you're not alone. But I think one of the very, very common mistakes is somehow, as dog owners, in the course of time and in recent years, and when I say recent, probably the last 5, maybe the last 7, there's a push toward zero stress in training or zero stress in lifestyle. And I see people jumping through so many hoops to make their dog's life incredibly comfortable. I mean, from simple things like, well, your dog barks when he sees people on the sidewalk, so you close the drapes and you move the furniture and you do this and you do that to accommodate the dog. We've lost sight that not being able to, if you don't create some sort of rules, it's okay to tell the dog, no, that's not okay. And I'm not saying you say it in those words, but there are ways
Right.
that you can do it that are non-confrontational. They're not confrontational. They are simply leadership. They're taking essentially the dog by the hand, for lack of a better description, and saying, we're not doing that. We're doing this instead.
Right.
And we've been told that in communities, it's become popular, easy to say everything should be all, wine and roses, and it's all no stress. And heaven forbid, if your dog's ears even go back, then, oh my goodness, you're putting too much stress. But the problem is we're not creating any resiliency in dogs whatsoever. And dogs that have no resiliency, that they can't handle the slightest bit of stress in their world, are dogs that are actually suffering from tremendous anxiety, tremendous behavioral issues, tremendous separation issues, because we have done so many things to remove any stressors from their life. They simply don't know how to handle the slightest thing anymore. And that's what I'm trying to help people understand is the difference. There's a difference between stress and distress. So when I work with people, I say, we're going to expose them to some stress, but we're going to teach them how to handle it, process it,
Right.
and then it's no longer stressful. It's no longer stressful.
Right.
Such a common mistake that everybody is tiptoeing around it and trying to avoid every situation rather than just push a little bit and push on through and get to the other side. And the other side is where we have clarity and calmness.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, people do make huge accommodations for their dogs. They stop their lifestyle. They don't go places. They don't do things. They don't travel, instead of considering how to help their dog cope, in that moment. It's really kind of a mistake for the dog because you're asking the dog to be something that they're not. My dog barks when the mailman comes, and if you're ever on a call with me, sometimes she'll just run right behind me, like out the door, on a moment's notice. When she barks, I always make the point to say, thank you for telling me that person, I mean, not in these words, but I acknowledge the fact that the dog is telling me that there is an intruder of some sort that I should know about. And then I ask the dog to let it go. Mm-hmm. And if the dog doesn't let it go, then that's the problem, right? Because they're not respecting my leadership in that moment. But if you ask your dog to let it go, thank you, I acknowledge, now let it go, and they let it go, well, what's wrong with your dog barking at the intruder in your yard? I think that they consider that a job, You know, they're not doing anything at the moment, and they're letting you know somebody's here. So yeah, so you're kind of asking the dog to be something they're not, and that's really difficult for the dog, you know, to understand what's expected of them. Can you tell me some of the common ways that dogs communicate their internal states, or
Okay.
some of these signals that people may not pick up on when a dog either feels good or feels bad?
Most people understand, they understand if they see the teeth and the lips are kind of puckered forward, they understand that's a threat. They understand that means the dog is trying to say, back off. Maybe the dog has got a toy or you get close and the lips come forward and then you hear vocalization as well, but they know that's a sign of back off. Some people may not know though, if you see the lips and you see everything come back, this kind of thing, a submissive smile can mean I'm feeling very nervous. What you're doing is a little concerning to me, but I'm no threat to you. I'm just trying to say, hey, it's all good. It's fine. So an appeasement gesture. Some of the dogs that'll do that are a lot of times they're submissive peers and things like that. That's a communication signal. So people are pretty aware of a lot of the mouth gestures. What they may not know though, is they may not know some of the more subtle anxious behaviors, respiration rates. When I first meet somebody with their dog, one of the things I do, I don't talk to the dog at first. And I hope people don't assume I'm being rude, but what I'm doing is observing. I'm observing, is that dog taking real slow, shallow little breaths, and they're not breathing full and calmly? That tells me about kind of the nervousness that the dog is feeling at the time. Dogs that are doing the look away. So when I look at them and they do this, that tells me about their internal state and how confident. Dogs that look me in the eye but can stay relaxed have probably been taught that eye contact is okay. So that tells me a lot, because what I like to see ideally, Jen, is I like to see a dog that can make eye contact. He's like, hi, it's nice to meet you. But then he's polite and he'll look away and then he'll come back. Those are polite greeting skills. The dog that makes eye contact with me and goes, and suddenly we have target lock. That is not a dog that I'm going to reach over and try to touch, because he's got target lock on me. A lot of times people don't know these subtleties. So these are the types of things that, a dog trainer is trying to teach the person, that these are those indicators that we were talking about before that precede what is about to happen. Lip licking is another one, right? Dog that does this little lip licking thing, he's a little nervous. If he's nervous, he's thinking about what his next action is going to be. Those are our cues that we have to teach people to watch.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. When I work with animals and people are asking me to take a look at their dog, right? Tell me what you think is wrong with my dog. I look for some really obvious things that might suggest deficiency. I'm curious to know, when you were talking earlier about looking at the dog holistically and assessing a dog that's coming into you, you mentioned a few things. What are some outward signs that the dog might show an owner? Maybe they don't notice it because they see the dog every day and they don't know anything different from the way the dog could be. But since you work with so many dogs, what would that look like for you? Like if you had a deficient dog, you knew this dog was deficient in something, what would some of those outward signals look like?
As far as like behaviorally, Jen, one of the things that to me that I pay attention to very quickly is the way the dog licks himself, right? Dogs groom themselves, but if it's constant, slow licking, and it's over and over to the point where a lot of these dogs get lick granulomas, and they get things on the wrists and things like that. That to me suggests there's something dietary that's going on, that dog is feeling that necessity to kind of cool that area and keep licking it. By the same token, the dog that does the little, like the
nibbling,
chewing, nibbling on corn type of thing, they do a lot of that. There's something going on there as well. So those are two indicators that I'm like, look, something is just a little off balance here. These are not within the normal profile of what we want for the dog. Obviously dogs that are scratching a lot, we see so many allergy things. So those things are very obvious. The scratching, goopy eyes are something that I'm going to be looking for. These are things that too often people have just gotten used to it and they think that's just their dog. Well, that's just your dog not feeling well, guys. We need to address it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny, and I hate to shame, a dog, but there are dogs out there that are carrying a little too much weight.
Oh,
And it's difficult on their joints and, their ability to move around and enjoy themselves moving around because it's just difficult physically. There are dogs that are out of alignment and their physical stature is out of alignment, and you can see that they're holding themselves in a certain way to protect something, or they're not sitting all the way down because they physically can't sit all the way down, and the owners are frustrated because, well, my dog just doesn't want to sit. Well, that may be true, but it may be not because they just want to spite you, but because they physically feel uncomfortable in a sit position, right? So we see a lot of that. We hear a lot of talk about diarrhea. We hear a lot of talk about, like you said earlier, flatulence. We hear burping. We hear, the scratching, like you said. We get all of those things, right down to brittle nails, constant ear infections, constant UTIs, things like that. All flags, guys. So if you have a dog that comes in, this is not the kind of dog, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Robin, that you want to jump in and start training without addressing what is happening, in the eating space. And if some people aren't ready to change diets, they're the kind of person that needs some proof to see what is in it for them. That may be the area that you were talking about earlier with the endurance or veggie pack that they add to their current food, and you work with them over time to get them to a better place. That all makes very good sense to me. Okay, a question. Here you have a dog that's having problems, right? They're just having problems with instinct control, with being able to relate to people, being able to relate to other dogs, the world around them. They're experiencing anxiety, some kind of reactivity of some nature, right? And here they come into your world. Do you have a story, kind of a breakthrough, where you took a dog that was struggling within their environment, where you could actually see the dog uncomfortable in their own skin, maybe? And how did you get to change that dog into a dog that was more comfortable with people and other dogs and within their space? Tell us how you did that through diet, training, giving that dog a job. I don't know if you have an example of that.
Well, I obviously have a lot of them. I have a lot of history of working with some rehab cases. I'm not going to name anybody per se,
Of course not.
because,
But
but yeah, oh gosh, yeah. Oh, lots and lots of dogs. Most of those dogs that are the most dramatic, I'll say the most dramatic turnaround, had bit somebody. They had bit somebody. There's lots of turnarounds with dogs that are anxious and dogs that would rather choose flight, and we equally like to see them blossom and come out of their shell. But these dogs that actually bit somebody, 99% of the time, the underlying reason started because of insecurities and anxieties. It manifested itself, and the dog had learned defensive maneuvers in order to keep the scary things away. But yes, so it is always a varied approach. We have to look at the diet, and I'm always suggesting and encouraging and sometimes insisting. Sometimes I will not take a case without them changing the diet, depending on where they're at and what they're starting with. There's always something that I'm adding in, always something that I'm changing dietary wise, because pretty much all the time, unless somebody has started out on the Volhard system because they heard me talk about it in puppyhood, pretty much everybody's going to get some sort of change when I'm working with them. So we address that. A number of these dogs have structural issues, as you had mentioned previously, Jen. So a lot of times there's some discomfort somewhere. We have to get, I work with a veterinary chiropractor acupuncturist, so we get treatments for those dogs. as far as the training part of it goes, I always start with a foundation of obedience. So I've got to build some sort of communication between me and the dog so that he can at least be with me and focus on me. But then the big piece of the puzzle, I take these dogs out into the real world and we teach them how that they can face their fears, whatever that fear is, and then nothing bad is going to happen. I a lot of times jokingly will say to the dog, the sky's not going to fall today, buddy. I got you. I got you. And we get out there, and when he experiences it and we see the confidence blossom in that dog that just didn't get a good start for whatever reason, and he realizes he doesn't have to freak out over everything, is very interesting then to see things just start to blossom and expand with the dogs. Those are really heartwarming cases to take on, because those are dogs more often than not. The person that owns that dog comes in and goes, I don't know what else to do. This is kind of our last chance because I'm afraid he's going to seriously hurt somebody if we don't take action now. So seeing that turnaround is wonderful. I have to mention that all of those pieces of the puzzle, the nutrition piece, the healthcare piece, the training piece, it's a lifetime endeavor. It's never a one and done. You need to keep the dog on a good diet. You need to make sure you maybe get an adjustment 2-3 times a year to keep things in alignment. And you need to make training part of your lifestyle. And that's part of the agreement I think we need to be making with our dogs, that we're going to keep doing the best we can for the lifetime of that dog.
That makes perfect sense. All right. Well, now we're going to get out of the deep space and let's talk about what's next for you. So in your new role as brand ambassador for Volhard, what can we look forward to as you dig into this?
Well, here's what I'm super excited about, Jen. I've been doing this for quite a long time, right? I mean, I've talked to individual clients. I've had little seminars for my clients. I'm emailing my clients. So I've been helping them and guiding them with this thought process for a long time. So what I get to look forward to, and hopefully Volhard looks forward to this, is I get to take this now to a different platform. The fact that everything that I've been helping people with for such a long time has been kind of like, under a bucket. I get to take the bucket off and we get to put the spotlight on it and say, look, here's why Robin has had so much success over the years. It's all these pieces of the puzzle. So I get to talk about, write about, do videos about how this nutrition piece plays into having a really well-behaved dog overall. So I'm just really, really excited about talking about that. And I'm certainly excited about sharing some of those little tidbits, those training tidbits with your community that, they may have a really strong foothold already on the health part of it, but I can give them little tidbits on the training thing to start pulling in those pieces of the puzzle too.
That is outstanding. And we are very excited about all of that. And you're going to see Robin on all different platforms and maybe even in person at some point. And we're really going to bring her into the fold because of her experience and her knowledge, both with training, both with the understanding of animals and with the understanding of the Volhard diet. Those three things together can help your dog reach their potential. And these are the kinds of people that we want to help bring forward. Why should I feed Volhard? What difference does it make, right? Don't hear it from us. We want you to hear it from a professional who uses it in practice. This isn't theory. This is active practice of using diet in order to help a dog thrive, not just survive. So Robin, we want to thank you so much for your time today. This is an introduction to our group of Volhard Pack members. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that have questions for Robin. And after seeing this, we'll be able to articulate those questions in the comment section. And we will get answers for you sooner than later, but every question will be answered. If there is a topic that you would like Robin to come and discuss on a live like this, then please also include those comments in the comment section, and we will see if we can't put together some fun topic and subject matter videos for you guys so that you can learn and join us whenever we get together. So thank you again, Robin, for your time today.
Thank you, Jen. This was fun. I'm looking forward to it.